this thing is just wide open. I mean, the whole Stewart-Haas thing blew this whole silly season wide open. And now, basically, Martin Truex, I think Gibbs needed an answer from Martin Truex Jr. earlier this season than he did last season, because there are some quality drivers out and available now from the Stewart-Haas camp that they couldn't wait until August to get an answer on this thing, because they obviously want to talk to these guys. First of all, let's talk about Martin Truex Jr. and what kind of legacy he leaves walking away from the sport.
I think his legacy will be, this was a guy that was a true racer that went out there and raced hard, but for the most part raced fairly. He was probably a tough customer, which made him a perfect fit when he came up through his connection with Dale Earnhardt Jr., which that was back in the early days, just a few years after Dale Earnhardt had died. And Martin always seemed to be this guy that could attract the hardcore racer along with the Northeast racer, which is where a lot of his fans are from. I always had a lot of admiration for Martin because he always seemed to be a very stand-up guy. He didn't give you any BS. He told you how he felt and what he thought. And I have a lot of respect for people in the garage area that do it that way.
Jerry, what are you thinking?
Well, first off, I'm thinking he's going to win this weekend, but that's beside the point. I
think one of his 5 home tracks.
It's one of his 5 home tracks, exactly right. So, I guarantee he'll get that question this weekend. I would take odds on it.
I may ask him.
You may, of course, you would.
What would you give him if I? What would you give him if I ask him?
Well, I'm having lobster Saturday night, so
okay.
So come join me. So for me, I have interviewed Martin many times, and I will always remember a time when I went up to interview him at Charlotte Motor Speedway when we did the Roval, and he did not like the Roval, and he did not want to talk to me at that time, and he was not happy about me coming to ask him about it. So he wasn't the nicest person in the world. 20 minutes later, he comes and finds me, okay, and says, "Dude, I'm sorry. It was just not the right time." I don't think I've had but one other driver in my history of 23 years of covering the sport come up and say something like that. Martin Truex Jr. is probably the most stand-up driver that I've ever met in the NASCAR garage. I mean, if he doesn't lie to me. As far as the reporting that I know, anything I've ever asked him, he's always treated me with respect as far from my professional life, my personal life. He's, from for what I see with the fans and the interaction and how he gives back and, what he did to the community and what he does to the Martin Truex Jr. Foundation. Probably one of the classiest guys, in my opinion, that we have in the sport. And I'm going to hate to see him go. I did hear him say, "I'll still be around." So I'm wondering what that means a little bit. But, I wish him well with whatever he does, because he's a great dude.
Well, right now he has 34 career wins. He's got a championship. And a couple of times, Bruce, he's been put in difficult situations where it was difficult to get wins. He was, early on at Michael Waltrip Racing. He was early on at Furniture Row when things were just getting turned around. So, how many more wins could he have had if he'd been in better situations at a couple points of his career?
Probably about 8 or 10 more wins. When you think about the years that he had, the success that he had at Furniture Row and later with Joe Gibbs, is he never really seemed to get the amount of attention that he deserved for those victories and those championships. At that time, you may have had more colorful drivers in the series that got the attention, or some were bigger names. The media were the people that try to create the names, but it just always seemed like Martin Truex was like the Tim Duncan, to throw an NBA name in there. Tim Duncan is one of the greatest players in NBA history. Played for the San Antonio Spurs, but he was so good at what he did, people didn't realize how great he was. And I think that's a little bit the same way that people look at Martin Truex.
First ballot Hall of Famer, Jerry?
I actually have heard the name Tim Duncan, and then when he said the Spurs, I'm I live in Texas. Even I know that name, but I had to throw that in there. He wasn't one of the top talked about players in the NBA, but just like that, Martin Truex Jr. Has, to Bruce's point, has not been one of the top talked about players or racers in NASCAR. And I think as a media, we've probably missed out on some great stuff with him. And I know the fans have probably missed out on some good stories that hopefully we can, he can share that one day with whatever it is, because he is a great person, and he's had a great story up to this point. But I'm having trouble with a lot of the guys that I've looked up to in the sport leaving. I mean, we lost Kurt Busch, we've lost Tony Stewart left. There's a lot of the drivers that I've worked with and done things with over the years that are not in the sport anymore, and it kind of sucks.
All right, both of you agree, first ballot Hall of Famer?
Oh yeah,
I'd vote for him.
Yep. All right.
I don't have a vote, but yes.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree 100%. Well, he's got a championship, and everybody else, you win a championship, that pretty much guarantees you're in. But then he added 34 races, including some of the big ones. He's won some of the crown jewels. So yeah, absolutely. All right.